I'm totally down for that. That's gonna be a good side quest. How to train a griffin. And this is the perfect moment for me to take a few minutes here during the live stream to talk about something that I know a lot of people have commented on. So let's make a timestamp and let's get going talking about dialogue in Dragon Age Veilguard, because I've seen a lot of commentary on social media about how people have made comments about how, oh, the game sounds like it was written by 8-year-olds, or it sounds like it was written for 8-year-olds. And we've been doing a lot of quests, we've been doing a lot of dialogue. I'm a big fan of mocap and voice acting, and BioWare has traditionally always done a really good job with the dialogue. Oh, we can scritch Asan. I told you guys we were gonna do it. Oh, we got to hug him. Yeah, buddy. So, what's up, Kyle Talks? This kind of stuff to me it's fluff, but it's cute, and I like cute in my games. So, there have been a lot of discussions around whether or not the dialogue in this game is good or not. And I would like to say that if you haven't already done so, I think it was during yesterday's stream, there was a couple of moments in particular. One, we went and had coffee with Lucanus at the cafe as one of his side quests, and I was marveling during that scenario of how cool his character felt as this as because as someone who loves coffee myself, and as someone who for many many years traveled around the world as a digital nomad and writer, I used to spend a lot of time in cafes, whether it was in Greece, Bulgaria, Italy, Serbia, a lot of places in the Mediterranean, Eastern Europe, and then in Latin America, working on projects for clients. I always loved the cafe culture, and so that moment with Lucanus of being able to sit down and enjoy a cup of coffee in a cafe environment, it was really cool to me, because a lot of the times when you do a D&D campaign or a fantasy game, they always just want to throw you in like the seediest tavern or the seediest brothels, and that's where all this stuff takes place. I mean, we can point to Baldur's Gate 1, Baldur's Gate 2, Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2. I mean, so many great CRPGs over the years that I've played. The you have a lot of time spent in taverns. Even look at how Icewind Dale started off. You're in a tavern meeting, was it Hrothgar, I think is his name? The adventurers all meet up in a tavern. So it's very refreshing to have a game that puts you in a cafe as opposed to a tavern. And then we got really emotional when we were doing the quest with Balara. And I'm going to try to keep this part spoiler free, but there's a moment when you're doing a side quest with Balara where you talk to her, and she's basically telling you about this backstory of someone she knew and cared for who is no longer with us. And that moment was very emotional for me. I got tears in my eyes when I was listening to her, because as someone who did lose a brother several years ago to suicide, and that loved one did not get lost to suicide, but I bring that up because I have suffered personal loss of a loved one. And so it hit home for me, and it was a very emotional moment for me. And then also, like going and doing the quest with Harding, where she is figuring out how to control the power that she has and manipulating the environment with her character. Those moments where I've been able to go off and do the side quests with the companion characters have been very emotionally fulfilling as a role player, and the voice cast has done an absolutely stellar job with bringing these characters to life. Now, is this game different than previous Dragon Age installments? Absolutely. Does some of this game feel like it has been written to appeal to a wider audience? Yes. And I'm okay with that. I know some people have said, oh, it's just so much, it's not as dark as the previous games, and I wanted grim dark. I wanted it to be dark and gritty, and I want to be a murder hobo, and I can't be a murder hobo. And I see all these ideas being presented around of why people don't like the I don't want to say it's a lighter tone, because I have definitely seen there's been a lot of darkness. Like when we were going through that one quest with the town that's been overcome with the blight, and there's like bodies hanging from the rooftop, and they've been pierced through with thorns, and the blight has taken over everything, and there's pustules and cysts that are pulsing and spewing ooze, and it's taken over all the villagers. Like, you cannot say that this game doesn't have the same darkness as previous games when you see things like that. But I will fully admit that the tone of this game overall, it has been modernized, and there's nothing wrong with that. We often talk about, as an example, um, we used to sail across the seas in wooden vessels, and now we fly across the seas in airplanes. And at no point in time do I want to go back to sailing across the sea in a wooden vessel. I would much prefer to fly across the sea because modernity is a good thing, and modernizing things is a good thing. They are also appealing to a new generation of players who didn't grow up with the franchise. A lot of us, myself included, we were in a completely different time of our lives when Dragon Age Origins came out. I was in my, what, I think probably early 20s when this game came out, when the first game came out, and I was a completely different person 20 years ago compared to when I am today. And my tastes have evolved over then, and this series, this franchise, has evolved over time, and I'm okay with that. There are moments in this game where, just like with any game out there, there are high points in the dialogue and there are low points in the dialogue. I heard somebody say that this feels a lot like it has been dumbed down to the level of a Marvel movie. I don't know that I would agree with that overall. I will say there are definitely times when the dialogue does feel like it has been streamlined for the modern audience. There's nothing wrong with that if you understand going into it why they did that and made that artistic choice, and I'm okay with that. And I think that fans of the franchise and fans of BioWare are going to be okay with that. I've also seen a screenshot, which we actually did this bit during yesterday's stream. There's a screenshot going around X/Twitter of a conversation that you have where there's the three options presented, and the second option is just the word oof, like oof. And that represents what the character's about to say. Now, what Rook says if you select that option is not oof. He has a line of dialogue that is appropriate to that. And the context of that was Lucanus was saying something very dire. Like, he was saying something like, I don't want to spoil the story, but he was saying something that was very grim. And your character had a variety of ways to react to that grim thing that Lucanus just said. One of them was oof. And then you say the line of dialogue, and that was the sarcastic option where Rook then says, well, I don't know about that, blah, 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 blah. There are lots of times when I, as a human being, will use a one-word exclamation which displays a ton of emotion depending on the context of the situation. And if you look at that screenshot and what people are trying to say around that screenshot on Twitter X, it's missing all of the context of what Lucanus was saying in that moment, because oof was absolutely a valid response to him saying the grim thing that he just said. Because it's like, oof, man, buddy, I don't know about that. Like, fuck, dude. Like that's the equivalent of what the oof. I chose the oof option, Panda Tech, just to show what it was on the stream, because I wanted to show that moment to everybody to prove that it wasn't the 8-year-old dialogue that so many people have tried to claim that it was, using that out of context screenshot. What I will say is the game, just like any game, whether it's Baldur's Gate 3, Dragon Age Origins, Starfield, Cyberpunk, Pillars of Eternity 1 or 2, Baldur's Gate 1 or 2, you pick the RPG, and I can guarantee you there are good lines of dialogue and bad lines of dialogue, because a lot of it is based on personal choice, subjective viewpoint about what's good or bad. Certain people like certain comedians, other people don't. I always tell people, as a writer, I have over 20 million words in print. I have written some really good stuff that I'm very proud of, some award-winning stuff. I've written a lot of middle-of-the-road stuff where I was under deadlines and pressure and we just got to get it done. And I've written some stuff that I'm not that proud of, and I definitely have some stuff in that pile where I don't even have my name on it. I just took the paycheck and did it as a ghostwriter. Absolutely, you're going to have a full range of dialogue in a game like this, and it's hard to be objective about whether the writing is good or bad because everyone has a subjective opinion about what is good or bad writing. So I think for me personally, as someone who has been going through the game and feeling the emotional impact of the one-on-ones that I have with the companion characters, also the interactions between your companion characters as you're running around the game world, it's all the same dialogue we've come to know and love from BioWare over the years as a company. It's the same type of dialogue I've seen in every Dragon Age game. It's the same type of dialogue I've seen in every Mass Effect game. I've seen it in every Obsidian game. I've seen it in every Bethesda game. Like, there's really good stuff, there's some middle of the road stuff, and then there's some stuff where I actually personally might go, oof, that might not be the line of dialogue I would have chosen to write, but it's still part of the overall experience, and the voice actors have done a very good job bringing all of this to life. So for me, I don't find the dialogue bad at all. Is it different than previous installments? A little bit. Is it more modernized? Absolutely. I don't need all games to have Shakespearean, old school style dialogue. This has definitely been modernized to appeal to a newer generation of audience members as well as fans of the originals. And as someone who is a fan of the original games and a fan of everything that BioWare has done, including, yes, Anthem and Andromeda, I personally have quite enjoyed everything I've seen. And I would urge you, if you haven't already done so, go back and watch the previous streams of seeing those moments like with Balara and Nev and Lucanus, because I get really emotional and excited in those scenes because it has been incredibly well done. That's my take on things. We're going to get back to the stream now. But for those of you watching this after the fact, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Daily streams on YouTube and Twitch. Traditionally, we start at 9 a.m. in the morning, Mountain Time. But because it's launch weekend, we're starting super early. I did 5 a.m. yesterday. We did 6 a.m. today. I'll probably do 5 or 6 a.m. tomorrow as well. So hopefully we'll see you then as we continue onwards. This will be a perfect example.
Okay, Balara, what's your lead on getting us a Fade expert for the team?
Good evening.
Greetings.
Rook, so we need a Fade expert. I've been writing to a senior mage who fits the part. But right now he's on an expedition, so I reached out to his colleagues to find him. This is Lady Myrna and Vorgoth. They're necromancers. Mournwatch ones, I mean.
Your friend's request for a Fade expert was urgent. How darksome are things outside Navarra?
Perfect example. This is great voice acting. Nothing wrong with this dialogue. Mystified says, I agree, it's very true. Brandon Sanderson is my favorite writer of all time, and even he has written stuff throughout a book series that isn't perfect quality. That's fine. Oh my god, he's a great example because I've talked about this before. Reading Mistborn, after the first couple of fight sequences with Vin, I seriously, literally just skim read every single fight sequence after that. It would be like, okay, Vin's going to do a lot of jumping around and leaping into the sky and pushing and pulling and using her powers, and at the end she's going to defeat the bad guy, or there's something that's interesting that's going to happen on the like final scene of the fight. So I'm going to skip those 20 pages of action dialogue that I don't care to read because it's just repetitive to me, and I'm going to get to the end. Does that mean that Brandon Sanderson is a bad writer because I found those moments repetitive and boring? No, I do the same thing with R.A. Salvatore. He has so much combat, and I will just skip through those combat sequences because it's not really my favorite part. Robert Jordan is another great example when he goes off on these tangents about how, he has to describe every line of embroidery on the dresses of the 50 people that are in the room while the 3 people are having a conversation. Skip, skip, skip. Like, it's, good and bad.
We've seen terrible magic, old magic. It'll get worse unless we step up.
I see.
Exactly, Mystified.
Balara's correspondent is Professor Emmerich Volkarin, a Fade expert and powerful psychagogue.
You will need him.
Where can I find him?
The Professor is currently delving the shrouded halls in the Grand Necropolis. We will grant you passage to look for him. Where the dead. Lately they grow restless.
Okay, so we're gonna go meet Emmerich.